Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. Welcome for the first Asian Research Institute of Environmental Law webinar. And today we're very, very excited to host this webinar in conjunction with the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime and the United Nations Environment Programme for a very interesting webinar on unwaste, tackling waste trafficking to support a circular economy. It's a great pleasure to welcome you here today. And can I say that as part of this webinar, we are recording it and the materials will also be placed on the Mobilised Waste network and community after the presentations today. We have a number of excellent panelists for you today. And we have both the raise hand function that can be used, where you can click the raised hand for the questions and answers, and the Q&A box where you can also type in questions and answers, and we will enable that so you can also vote up questions and see the responses. My name is Matthew Baird. I'm the Director of the Asian Research Institute for Environmental Law, and it is with great pleasure that I would invite our opening speaker and presenter, Giovanni Broussard from the UN Office of Drugs and Crime. Just to give Giovanni a little introduction, he is the Regional Coordinator of the UNODC Global Programme for Combating Wildlife and Forest Crimes in Southeast Asia. I think that might be right. There may be an updated version, but his work focuses on promoting a reform of the traditional conservation sector to introduce tools of the criminal justice system. In this framework, he's contributed to the establishment of a number of working groups dealing with wildlife and timber crime, transnational crime, both in Asia and in Africa. He has worked in a number of areas looking at training and developing of training courses to over 1,000 law enforcement officials and supported national dialogues to promote better legal frameworks, modern investigation techniques and prosecution against environmental crime. So it's with great pleasure that I would introduce Giovanni and welcoming him to the webinar today. Thank you, Giovanni.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you all for being here. Yes, my name is Giovanni, as Matt already mentioned. And I would like to start by, first of all, thanking really the Asian Research Institute for Environmental Law for hosting this event, especially on the WasteForce platform, the community that is really an honor for us to be here. And I would like to thank also UNEP for facilitating actually the development of this webinar. I hope that you will find it useful. We have some very good speakers for you today. And this will be also an opportunity to talk about a new project that UNODC in cooperation with UNEP has started. With the support and the generous funding from the European Union, the foreign policy instrument. The new project is called Unwaste, and we will hear more about Project Unwaste from the coordinator, Ms. Ioana Cotuzio. Together with colleagues from UNODC, we are very honored to have also as a speaker, Mr. Luigi Garuto, an investigator from the European Commission, European Anti-Fraud Office, otherwise known as Olaf, and our colleague and friend, Dr. Georgina Lloyd from the United Nations Environmental Programme. The agenda you see on the screen, what we will cover. We will talk about illegal waste trade in practice, and we will have a presentation from Olaf to be followed by two presentations by UNODC and UNEP. One important element that I would like to reiterate about why this webinar and this project on waste even came out is, let's say, an increased recognition that the movement of waste is exposed to risks of illegality, and in particular is exposed to the involvement of transnational organized criminal syndicates. It's something that is clear. There is evidence of organized crime in the waste sector in many in many regions of the world, and with the changes in the sector that we are witnessing in the past few years as a result of different policies adopted by different countries in different regions of the world, this is a particularly relevant moment to actually try to understand how to combat organized crime even in this specific sector. And with this in mind, UNODC started to work in the field of waste, where there are many other organizations that have done already excellent job in really trying to combat the potential inclusion of intrusion of organized crime in this sector. So this is a little bit of the background for this seminar and for the project on waste. So with that, probably we can move to the next slide. So with that, I will ask you to scan with your phone that QR code, which will take you to a Menti poll outside of these Zoom, and we will see then the results of the Menti poll. So if for now, can I just ask you to take a few seconds to respond to the question on the Menti poll? Okay, with that, I would like now, just a second. Okay, very good. I guess that we are now ready for the first presentation of the day. It is my pleasure to actually introduce the first speaker of the day, our friend, Mr. Luigi Garuto. Luigi is an Italian customs officer with many years of experience, is an investigator of the European Anti-Fraud Office, Olaf, based in Brussels. The unit he works for deals with illicit trade, health, and environmental issues. Olaf has been some years in the fight against waste trafficking and supports the European member states and third countries concerned. So it's a particular pleasure for us to hear now the presentation by Luigi. Luigi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. Thank you all. First of all, thank you for inviting Olaf to this important webinar. I'm really honored to represent the European Anti-Fraud Office and talk about our commitments in this new area of interest. As you mentioned, I'm an investigator of Olaf, and we are dealing with this environmental crimes in general since years so far. But still, in my previous experience, I used to work on this specific topic for more than 15 years. So I could say we have collected a very good experience on the field. You know that environmental crimes and fraud affecting environmental issues more in general have been increasingly an Olaf under Olaf radar. So we are trying to develop our cooperation with the member states, the authority concerned in the member states, but also with the non-European countries in order to tackle this phenomenon properly. So next slide, please. I don't know if everybody knows about Olaf, but I just want to give a couple of information concerning my office. Olaf is the only investigative body in the EU, so we are the investigative body of the Commission. Historically, we were responsible of investigation concerning mainly EU funds, because we mainly protected the EU budget, including the protection of custom duties, which represent a very big quantities of money, around 60 billion euros each year. So it was quite important for the Commission to focus the attention on these specific frauds. But recently we have enlarged the mission of the office, and we have had a reorganization of the office not far from 2 years ago. And now we have also other possibilities to investigate in different areas of interest, like health, as you mentioned, and we have investigation concerning food or medicines, but also concerning environmental issues. And we are working, and we have ongoing cases. I personally have cases concerning illicit traffic of waste, but also illicit trade or counterfeit refrigerant gases. So I could say two main topics concerning the environment. And thanks to our investigation, we are doing our best to make the new EU strategy, the Green Deal, effective. As I said, due to the reorganization of the office and thanks to a special mandate, now we are able to carry on investigation where there is no direct financial impact to the EU budget. As you can see in the low part of the slide, here we have our legal basis. And the lesson learned so far is that if we want properly tackle this new phenomenon, that is not completely new, but is new for my office, and this phenomenon is absolutely characterized by a real globalization of the crimes. So the most part of my investigation is trying to link international dots. We need to approach with a new strategy. First of all, I would say a wide cooperation with new actors is essential, is key. So Olaf in this specific field is trying to develop a fruitful and effective cooperation, not only with the traditional law enforcement agencies, but also with authorities concerned, competent in the specific field, with determined technical areas of interest. Next slide, please. Okay. Just to give you a brief overview of the Olaf investigative approach, I can say that we can use different tools to investigate. First of all, we have investigative tools in the stricto sensu. This means that we have the right mandate to carry out directly, even without the support of the local authorities in the member states, on-spot checks in the premises of the company. We have also the possibility to take interviews or statement of people. We have a specialized unit to deal with forensics analysis, and so collect information even through the laptop or mobile phones or whatever. When we collect reliable information concerning suspicious movement of waste, shipped from EU to non-EU countries, we are able to open cases and investigate in the most efficient way in the EU. So we can go directly and independently and make whatever is needed to identify and find evidence concerning this illicit traffic. But we have also some mission outside the EU border. And this is linked to the fact that Olaf can also sign mutual assistance agreement with non-EU countries. And so far we have almost 80 active agreements ongoing. And even in this framework, so in the context of non-EU investigation, we have the possibility to have access to documents, computer data, and the possibility to take samples, of course, according to the legislation of the non-EU country and in strict cooperation with the local authorities. On the other hand, we have also coordination activities. In this specific environment, we have the possibility to facilitate the exchange of data and evidence among the parties involved. We also can provide as a support analysis of flows, analysis of data. We can provide alert notification even to member states or non-EU countries. Just for an example, when we have information from a member states that there is a suspicious movement of waste destined to the country X, non-European country, we have the possibility to address an alert notification directly there, collect information about the receiver, or if the shipment is allowed to be imported in the country, and report this information to the source country, in order to investigate if there is an issue, or just to be sure that the shipment is correctly addressed to the authorized company. So we have also the possibility to organize operational meetings, and we have done a lot so far, even important in operational meetings, putting around the same table, even virtually, but physically when we have the possibility, all the parties involved, meaning the authorities of the country of shipment and the country of destination, and where is needed, because very often the cases of illicit shipment of waste are criminal cases in EU. We are also inviting the prosecutor that are carrying on the criminal investigation to our operational meeting, in order to be able to collect the exact and the right evidence to step further in the criminal investigation. That means also step further in the administrative proceedings. Of course, all this information, all the data that we are able to collect became part of Olaf reports, and these reports can be used directly at the national level as an evidence in administrative or criminal proceedings, as an evidence. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. But of course, do whatever I've said so far is important, the cooperation. We cannot do it alone. So, so far, Olaf participates to several international operations related to waste or environmental crimes. Yes, this one. International operations like Demeter, Silver Axe, a lot of projects under the Europol umbrella, under the Impact umbrella. But since 2019, the beginning of 2019, the previous slide, please. Yeah, this one. But since 2019, we have independent case investigating movements of waste from EU to non-EU countries, non-OECD countries like Malaysia, Liberia, Vietnam, India, etc. But also to OECD countries. So we are investigating cases of illicit shipment of waste destined to Turkey as well. Our targets are old waste, so about hazardous waste, non-hazardous waste, and among this non-hazardous waste, we have a special focus on green listed waste, because according to our investigation so far, these are the most interesting topic to follow, because of course you know perfectly we are talking about recyclable waste, recoverable waste, so it's easy to identify frauds related to declaration concerning this green listed waste. We can go to the next slide, please. Let me speak now about how we step further in a case. When we collect all the data, we create a sort of general communication destined to all the member states concerned, so the authorities of the member states, mainly customs authorities, because we are talking about export of waste or eventually import of waste. So we report all the data that we collect to the member states in order to update the risk profile of the authorities. Then we have an analysis of the data. We internally in my unit, and I'm one of the analysts as well, we analyze the data, but we have also a specific unit dealing with the analysis. So for specific needs, we can request the assistance of the that used to collect all the possible information, even on open sources. So at the end of the day, we have a very good report concerning all this information. Analyzing this information, we are able, and also analyzing our database, we are able to create alerts and notification to the competent authorities. And in specific cases, when we have identified suspicious movements of waste, we are also the possibility to connect with the destination country and report to the authority, the competent authority, the control authority in the EU, the information received. And as I mentioned before, we have the possibility also to collect this information in a report in order to be used in a criminal proceeding. According to our investigation, we have identified some, I could say, loopholes or related to the illicit traffic of waste. And these main points are listed here in this email. We have identified a lot of export to non-authorized company. Most of this waste are waste listed in the column C or D of the regulation 1418/2007. So we are still talking about recoverable waste. We have identified cases of misdeclaration of the waste, both in the import country, in order to circumvent their national restriction, but still also in the export country in order to circumvent the regulation 1013/2006. That is the waste shipment regulation. In all these cases, when a misdeclaration occur, we see that the result is that the waste is not managed in an environmentally sound manner, with serious consequences, mainly for the country of destination of the waste, of course. Also, we have noted diversion of the shipments. That means the waste is arrived physically in a place different by the one declared in the customs declaration. And very often is then managed by non-authorized company. We have noted several times this problem, and this is an enormous vulnus in practical terms. That means that there is a lack of control when the waste is shipped from from Europe, And we have also noted cases when the illegal shipment was repatriated by or returned back to the source country. We have noted several times that the waste never reached the EU border, but is diverted in other countries. So I would say that there aren't sufficient tools to guarantee the return of the container to the source country responsible for the illicit shipment. And this means that the prevention, avoid that the goods is illicitly shipped from EU to Asia, is the key in the approach that we are trying to put in place. Then we have noted also a massive use of intermediaries, mainly located in Hong Kong, Singapore, or other countries. And apparently there is no reason why the goods is shipped on the paper to these intermediaries. And we are trying to understand a little bit more. And we have opened a discussion with the countries concerned, not only the countries of the intermediaries, but also with the country of final destination of the waste. So far, we noted also a lack of cooperation with some non-EU countries. We tried, as Olaf, to put in place a project in order to have a rapid alert system to share information in real time with the country of destination in order to monitor risky shipments. We have seen a good cooperation from some countries, but still there need to strengthen the cooperation with the destination countries. And hopefully projects like Unwaste can efficiently support and facilitate this crucial cooperation, because in my opinion, and according to the information and the data that we have, the cooperation of the country of destination is absolutely crucial. Last but not least, we have noted also an increasing in terms of number of intra-EU movement of waste. And we perfectly know that we need to monitor more in depth these movements, because at the end they are concluded with an export to a non-EU country. So even these movements are strictly linked to the export of waste. Next slide, please. We have had recently an interview to the EU Commissioner on Environment, and he still mentioned that we cannot think that getting rid of EU waste is a solution, because the waste in a way or in another come back to us in several forms. Just speaking about plastic, we know that it constitutes the third highest waste source globally, and is increasing due to the increase of the global population, of course, and the per capita consumption. And we have noted that concerning plastics, we have several issues related to the illicit movement of this waste. As you can see on top of the slide, there is just a picture of a small region in a neighboring country. And we have noted that some studies there show illegal fires or illegal landfills in this small region. So with a huge impact, a negative impact on the environment and on the health of the citizen there. We have also scientific data concerning the microplastics. So I don't say nothing new if I say that often when we eat fish, we are ingesting plastic particles, because 90% of the fish have such particles in their stomach. So there are scientific evidence on this. But last but not least, we have also some other effects of the illegal shipment of waste in terms of difficulties to repatriate the legal consignments, and in terms of direct costs related to the repatriation of the waste. I'm trying to face cases and concerning the repatriation of the waste, and I see that after 2-3 years, the waste is still there in the country of destination, and they are trying to repatriate the waste without any success. And the cost of this operation are really, really high. So in terms of negative impact of the illicit shipment of waste, we see a different possibility to be effective with the prevention. Next slide, please. Olaf is trying to build a winning strategy, I would say. Of course, we are an investigative body. We don't have policy powers, but still we have the possibility to influence in a way or in another, even policy officers. So what I would say, and I would like to take other 5 minutes to explain, not specifically using sensitive data, but what we have done in a case. And following these 3 steps that are mentioned here in the slide. But what I would like to stress here, and I'll do it again later, we have the opportunity to create a winning strategy together with the help of the country of destination, so with the help of the authorities of the country of destination, and hopefully this project can be helpful also to create this connection. Next slide, please. So as you can see, the first step of our strategy is to have a good data collection, and analyzing this information, we are able to target our activities in order to open cases and in order to strengthen the cooperation with the country of destination. Of course, we are using all the databases available. We have some specific databases in our office, of course, investigative databases, but we are also using public sources or all the information possible. You can see here information coming from Eurostat. This information are public, are data related to trade, so are not specifically related to waste, but still in this database we are also able to collect some interesting data. As soon as we have collected all the data, then we make our analysis, of course, to identify possible country of destination more affected by shipment of waste, the main waste streams, etc. And at the end of this analysis, we are able to create, to pass to the second step. If you go to the next slide, please. The next step, as mentioned, is creating, I could say, the perfect international environment and networking to be effective. For instance, I just mentioned here what we did in a specific case. We noted that there were a lot of shipments destined to the non-EU country that I called here X. So basically, we were not aware if all these shipments were all legal shipments. So in order to identify and distinguish among the legal to the illegal shipments, we keep in contact with the authority in member states. It was not an easy process, but at the end of a few months of discussion and interaction, my director paid a visit to the authorities there, a physical visit. And then we exchange information using our normal tools, like emails and tools like this one. And we were able to collect all the essential information concerning the system, the legislation in place in the country of destination, and the system, the specific system regulating the movement of plastic waste. As you can see here, the system is a licensing system, and there needs to get a prior permit before the shipments. And another very, very important part was the fact that the country of destination was so cooperative that they provided us a list of authorized companies in order to facilitate the controls and limit also the needs to request systematically the legitimacy of a single shipment. So we were able, with all this information and even samples of the official documents released by the authorities in the country of destination, to inform the member states concerned. And you can you can go to the next slide. And we were able to inform, as I said, the member states, and providing them all the information, included the list of the authorized company, included the samples of the documents needed. So they were easily in the position to check the documents concerning all the consignments. When they were declared at the border, they were easily in the position to see if there were all the documents needed, and if something was missing, they used to contact Olaf, and Olaf facilitate the exchange of information among the authorities of the member states with the authorities of the countries concerned by the shipment. So I would say a single point of contact, Olaf, to facilitate the transmission of this information and monitor also the follow-up of the activities. So in case of an investigation in the EU, or in case of a potential investigation in the country of destination, we were able to provide the authorities with updated information in order to step further in their files. So I would say in their investigation. Then we have also noted that a huge number of investigations in EU were opened thanks to the information provided by the country of destination, because in most of the cases, the shipment of waste was destined to non-authorized company, or were not allowed because they didn't have the permit by the authorities to export the waste to the country X, as I mentioned. The support to the investigation was absolutely fine, because we provided them with official declaration by the authorities of the country of destination, and several investigations, as I said, were opened, and I will show you just an example in the next slide. We don't have a lot of information concerning investigation in the country of in the non-EU country, but of course, if you provide Olaf with simple request that you need support from an European country, we were able to put you in contact with the authorities there, or provide you with the necessary information in order to clarify if a shipment was legal or illegal. And also, last but not least, and I have noted that this is very, very important, is the support that Olaf can give to the activities related to the take back of the container. We have already cases where I have noted that it's very, very difficult, and probably is the most difficult part, to repatriate the waste in due time, especially when there are criminal investigation in Europe, because all the movements, all the shipments, the repatriation of the shipment can be authorized by also the prosecutor in the country of export. So in this way, we are in the position to facilitate the exchange and the dialogue with the European authorities. Next slide, please. Just the example of a single member state that provide me with this information. In the case that I'm explaining now, I'm collecting all the data from the European countries in terms of results collected after receiving the alerts from Olaf, and all the information from the third countries through Olaf. And I think this is the result of almost few months of work, around 12 months, 1 year. And in a single member states, they detected 22 cases. The total quantity is not big. We are talking about 297 tons of plastic waste blocked at the border because the importer was not authorized, or there was no prior authorization by the authority of the country of destination. So in these specific cases, we were able to prevent an illicit shipment of waste. And then the waste was returned to the producer of the waste and managed in an environmentally sound manner. But I also know already that there are other ongoing investigations in more than 4 countries still related to illicit shipment of waste, attempt to illegally ship the waste to the same X non-EU country of destination. So thanks to this information, we were able to prevent and to stop this illicit shipment of waste in several member states. And this is a very interesting, a good results at the end. Next slide, please. So what we are trying to do now is to strengthen and harmonize export controls according to the condition, of course, established by the country of destination. As we said, we have seen a lot of export to our non-authorized company or misdeclaration of the waste already certified here in Europe, but I have also information that this misdeclaration of the waste occurred several times in the country of import. We have, in a specific exercise, cross-checked the export information with import information, and in this specific country, almost 30% of the import declaration was misdeclared compared with the export declaration in Europe. So there is a lot of work to do together, and it can be realized easily if we cooperate efficiently and effectively together. And I strongly invite you to take this opportunity to support projects like Unwaste and cooperate with Olaf in the fight against waste trafficking. Next slide, and this is all from my side. Thank you for your attention. If you have any question, needs of clarification, I'm available, of course. Thank you very much.
Luigi, thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. I think you covered a lot of ground in terms of the intricacies of this trade, how in practice it works, and how difficult it is sometimes to detect for the authorities, especially those on the recipient end. It really falls through the cracks also of the private and public sector, and that makes things more complex. Of course, there is an element of corruption that facilitates also the trade of waste. And I'm always impressed to hear about the presentations from Olaf, because I'm impressed about the investigative capacity and the jurisdiction of Olaf can really provide a huge help in connecting different authorities on the recipient and on the countries of origin of the waste, when the country of origin especially is within the European Union. So we are very proud and happy to have Olaf as a partner in this project, and I really hope that we will continue to work, and that the work of Unwaste on a more policy level can be complemented by the highly operational work of Olaf. So thank you very much for, again, this presentation. For all the participants, I see that we have now more than 50 participants. I would encourage you to post your questions for Luigi, either on the chat box, and maybe Luigi will be able to answer already on the chat box. But anyway, at the end of the presentation, we will have a little bit of time for Q&A. So if you want, you can ask your question at the end of the presentation. But if you also want to keep it on the chat box also for later, to address them later, feel free to do so. With this, we move now to the next presentation, which is really more focused on the actual project Unwaste, and we will learn and understand a little bit more about these projects from the words pronounced by the very coordinator of this project, Miss Ioana Cutuzziu, who has joined UNODC in November 2021, just a few months ago, as the new coordinator of this project based in Bangkok, Thailand. Before joining UNODC, Ioana was working for almost 2 decades in the environmental sustainability and environmental health sector, working with high NGOs, private foundations, and the UN system. She's been based in Bangkok for actually almost 7 years before joining UNODC, and she worked on investigation projects related to environmental crimes, ethical supply chains, human rights, focusing really very much on Asia Pacific. Ioana holds a law degree, a graduate diploma in business administration, and a master's degree in mental health from the University of Montreal. So, Ioana, without any further ado, I pass the floor to you for your presentation.
Hello, and thanks for joining. Thanks, Giovanni, for the introduction. So I'm going to talk about a project. The name of the project is Unwaste, Tackling the Waste Trafficking to Support a Circular Economy. And before going into the actual description, I wanted to give an overview on how this, why this project started. So as Giovanni was mentioning, there are a lot of work that was done on the topic, but also whenever you read any paper on waste trade, first thing that comes up in 2018, China West imports banned, and then there's a shift of export in Southeast Asian country. And also EU, it's one of the top exporters of waste globally, and between 15–30% of waste shipments within the European Union and also outside of European Union may be illegal, and it generates 9.5 billion per year in the European Union for the criminal networks. So here, before going into the core of the presentation, I wanted to ask you all a question. You're all professionals working in the sector, and if you could scan with your phone and answer this question. We don't need a comprehensive answer, just put a couple of words. For example, what are the main challenges? It can be lack of data, it can be lack of capacity for enforcement, or whatever it's your experience. Just pick the first one that comes to your mind, and we'll give you a couple of moments to do that. And unfortunately, for technical reasons, we wanted to show the results to everyone to see who is experienced what, so to have a temperature check, but we'll share the result of this question after the webinar. So if you cannot scan, then you can click the link for answering, and we'll give you maybe 1 more minute before we move to the next slide. So just take 1 moment to think about it. And hoping that you managed to enter the answer, we can move to the next slide. So there are a couple of challenges, and this is not a comprehensive list, but something that comes up very often in the discussions with the professionals working on waste trade. So main issues, lack of traceability of imported waste. So very often there are a lot of intermediaries, and also we are losing track of the waste. Once it reaches to the destination country, we don't know what happens after. Also, there is inconsistent data, inconsistent use of HS code. That it's a really issue that needs to be tackled. There are also the economic impacts of COVID-19 on informal and legal recycling sector. And some issues that are raising are insufficient capacity for enforcement and lack of adequate sanctions for illegal waste activities. And there are many more, and I'm sure in your professional life you are encountering more. So we are very looking forward to see your answers to our previous question. Next slide, please. Next. Sorry. So Unwaste project has three main objectives, and the first objective relates to understanding of the waste flows between Europe and Southeast Asia. And we want to look into impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on the flow of waste. The second objective is to promote cooperation within each country of the targeted countries, and looking into what needs to be in place according to different countries in order to combat illicit movement of waste from EU towards Southeast Asia. And our third big objective is to facilitate dialogues within the region in Southeast Asia, but also inter-regional between Southeast Asia and European Union. And those discussions will happen at policy level and will happen in order to promote partnership between European Union, Southeast Asia nation, and all has the aim to support a circular economy approach. Next slide. In terms of project timeline, the project will be spread throughout 3 years. We started the project, first day was beginning of August last year, and was an inception phase. And we right now we are already in the implementation stage, and the project will end at the end of July 2024. So we have 3 years and a lot of work to do. And the geographical focus I mentioned a little bit in our objectives will be the exports. We'll focus in terms of waste flow exports from European Union to Southeast Asia, and we are going to focus on 4 countries mainly: Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam. But we are also going to look into the wider regions. And there are also going to be, as I mentioned, different dialogues and exchanges between these 4 countries, Asian and EU, like in both directions. So in terms of deliverable results, what we want to put in place, we want to put in place a research team and have a monitoring system in place for media policy development. We want to look into data, collect data from different stakeholders, and publish the quarterly bulletins in order to inform regularly interested stakeholders or what are the latest developments. And Luigi mentioned in his presentation that, for example, this is the type of information that could be useful for in the practical reality of enforcement bodies. Next slide, please. An important piece of the project is the publication of a study on waste trade, and we are aiming to map the waste flows between Europe and Southeast Asia, also look into policy and legislation gap, and in order to do so, we are going to organize meetings with expert groups. We are going to do data collection and analysis. Our colleagues, implementing partners from UNEP, they are going to look into legal aspects. You will hear more details a bit later in the presentation, and we aim to publish a report by mid next year in order to share this information as widely as possible. Another element of the project will consist into dialogues, and these dialogues will happen. This element concerns mainly dialogue within the 4 countries that were mentioned, and those are aimed to lead to improve country strategies, to look into legislative gap, enforcement, management, and compliance, to respond to waste trafficking. In order to do so, there will be in place like national steering committees. There will be also some other legal elements, and we are also going to facilitate regular meetings and workshops. And the next result actually will build on the previous like dialogue element, where all these national dialogues will all these countries will come together, and there'll be regional meetings where different countries will discuss their respective realities and priorities. And we also want to make sure that there is shared understanding of legal, illegal exports of waste among the relevant stakeholders. Yes, next slide. And there will be also a lot of the enabling of partnership and exchange, and we aim to facilitate real-time communication channels, share database, joint task forces between countries of origin, transit, and destination to counter the waste trafficking, and that will translate into study tours, into bilateral interactions, also looking into tools for information exchange to detect breaches of compliance. And we want to conclude with the regional conference with Asian and EU stakeholders to discuss an approach to illicit waste flows and see how that can support the circular economy efforts. In terms of project governance, we have a core team. There is a UNODC core team that's based in Bangkok. We are working very, very closely with the UNEP, and we have a project steering committee that's chaired by the donor agency, by the European Union, and UNODC is the secretariat. We are going also to work with the research core team under UNODC coordination, and the research core team is going to collaborate with the team of experts from UNEP, EU governments, independent experts. And also, as I mentioned before, on the dialogue section, there will be national advisory committees in the 4 countries we are going to focus on.
So I'm going to be presenting on the legal review and support from UNEP. My name is Georgina Lloyd, and I'm the Regional Coordinator for Environmental Law and Governance at the UNEP Regional Office based in Bangkok. And UNEP is delighted to partner with UNODC to continue our important work to address illegal trade in waste. Under Result Area 1, UNEP's going to be supporting the comprehensive study detailing policy and legislation gaps to inform trends on waste flows from Europe to Southeast Asia. And this analysis will focus on the legal frameworks across the 10 ASEAN countries, but it will put a particular spotlight on offenses, violations, crimes, and penalties. This specific focus has built up findings from and past UNEP work on illegal trade in waste, including the guidance for prosecutors on the prosecution of illegal waste trade, which identified key gaps to enable the effective enforcement of waste crime and the need for further comparative legal assessment in the ASEAN region. And I'll share a bit more about that guidance and where you can access that guidance in the next slide. So to undertake this legal analysis, we're going to build a research team comprising of legal specialists, including a lead consultant and a national specialist. Sorry, please go back to the previous slide. This work will then dive deeper under result area 2 into the effective regulation and enforcement of illegal waste trade in the focus countries of Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Thailand, examining administrative and criminal remedies adopted to respond to violations of the legal frameworks. Finally, under result area 3, UNEP will support UNODC to build shared understanding on the illegal trade of waste amongst stakeholders at the ASEAN level and with EU stakeholders. And this is going to include, as Yona just said, regional dialogues and a policy paper on the obstacles that waste trafficking pose to the development of circular economies. And it's also going to look at best practices from Asia as well as from Europe. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, our work in Unwaste and the formulation of the and JET's contribution to this continuing work to address illegal waste trade builds upon the learnings from ongoing and past activities and other projects, including our work on the impact of COVID-19 on waste management. And I just wanted to share that UNEP is currently finalizing the preparation of guidance on policy and legislation on integrated waste management in times of pandemic, which is going to be released in early 22 in the next few months. So the rationale and the need for the legal analysis under Unwaste has been significantly informed by findings and outputs from the Waste Force Project. And the Waste Force Project supported international cooperation efforts amongst authorities engaged in the fight against illegal trade and management of waste, which ran from 2018 to 2021. And UNEP, along with other project partners, undertook several studies and developed several practical tools to facilitate international cooperation on illegal trade. UNEP in particular supported activities to boost international operational networking between the European Union and the Asia Pacific region in addressing illegal waste trade. And so this work identified that there are still significant gaps that remain. And so the Unwaste project is going to support in addressing those ongoing gaps. It also highlighted that there is a need for further research on the effective regulation and enforcement of illegal waste trade. And this also stemmed from the development of other resources, such as I mentioned, the guidance for prosecutors on waste crime, as well as the best practices for repatriation of illegal waste shipments from Asia to Europe, as well as an assessment of information exchange mechanisms used in cases of illegal shipments of waste. If you want to access any of these resources, which are available in English, Cantonese, Khmer, Thai, and Vietnamese, you can access them at the link that is provided on the slide. So UNEP really looks forward to continuing to provide legal expertise and support in addressing the fight against illegal waste trade, and continuing to work very closely with other agencies, including government counterparts and UNODC in this work. And we are particularly interested in continuing to build these partnerships across the enforcement chain to reduce the devastating impacts of environmental crime. And we'll be happy to answer any questions on this. So thank you very much. Back to you, Joanna.
I think it's, thanks a lot, Georgie. I think it's back to Giovanni.
Thank you very much, Joanna, and thank you very much, Georgie. My bad, I didn't actually introduce Georgie also as a speaker. I thought that there was going to be a little break between the two, my bad. So with some delay, I will anyway read the introduction about Georgie. Dr. Georgina Lloyd Rivera is the Regional Coordinator for Asia and the Pacific of Environmental Law and Governance for the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. Georgina's work covers the area of environmental rights, environmental crime, technical assistance in environmental law, and capacity building at the national and regional level. Georgina has been involved in capacity building for environmental law within Southeast Asia and has provided advice to government and non-government stakeholders on environmental law and policy issues. Georgina holds a PhD in law, a master in environmental law, and bachelor in environmental sciences from the University of Sydney. Again, sorry, Georgie, if I did not introduce you at the right time.
That is fine. Thanks, Giovanni.
Thank you. Okay, with this, I think that there is now a Menti a question on your screen. By now, you know the drill. You can either scan the QR code from the screen or actually click on the link that our team has already posted on the chat box. While you do that, I think that we can now open the floor for question and answers. And I see that there was already a question that was directed to Luigi. And I suppose that Luigi now had the time to look at the question that comes from Tiffany Chapeau. And Luigi, are you in the position to answer the question that was asked to you?
Yeah. Sorry, Giovanni. I was a little bit busy. I have seen the request is something related to our relationship with the Europol, mostly related to this. So if the colleague wants to have a comprehensive reply and she can address me a request via email, I can also provide with the details in terms of cooperation with Europol. In this moment, I could just say that we have a very good cooperation with Europol, and only last year I participated to several impact projects, most of them related to environmental crimes. So not only on waste, but also on refrigerant gases problems. And of course, we are also able to take advantage of this participation in order to collect intelligence and, if it's possible and useful, open initiative files from our side. But still, if she needs any further details or specific requests, she can find my email address in the presentation and can simply send me an email, and I'll be more. I'll go on more in details and provide her with all the necessary information if it's possible.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Luigi. And I want to emphasize that also impact that is mentioned in the question. For those of you that have not seen the question, actually the question from Ms. Tiffany was about how Olaf cooperate, essentially share information with Europol and impact from the European side. I'm quite glad that Impact will also be very much involved in Unwaste. We want to reach out to Unwaste, to Impact, specifically the team that works on wildlife and waste trafficking. They have activities going on connecting Europe to Southeast Asia, and we would like to continue the cooperation with them. We've been certainly in touch with them many times before. There is another question that is directed to Joanna and Georgie, but with the permission of both of you, Joanna and Georgie, I would like to also take a little go at that question. Is basically asking how Unwaste fits or coordinates with all the other programs and tools at UNODC, including the container control program, the AirCop, the work on the development of a legislative guide on waste, and the CJUST on promoting cooperation among prosecutors. The answer is that essentially this project is a little bit different from all of the other projects that have been listed, but it perfectly complements them in the sense that this project really has a stronger focus on partnership development. It's really trying to build a platform for countries of destinations and country of origin in the movement of waste to communicate with each other, not only at operational level, but also at policy level. And as indicated by the involvement of UNEP also on the legal and regulatory framework, this project really looks also at the policies in place and how the policies at the countries of destination and origin and transit can, in a sense, be more complementary to each other. So while some of the programs, AirCop, container control program, are more operational, they are aimed at identify risk indicators for certain containers or cargoes that are moving between countries. This project will look more at the policy side of the equation. Another point to suggest is also, well, I'll probably pause here. I think that we are already in touch also with RILO AP. I mean, a very strong component of this project will be the research part, where we are trying actually to prepare effectively the first comprehensive study on the flow of illicit waste between Europe and Southeast Asia. For that to happen, we are really trying to develop partnership with a number of organizations within the UN and outside of the UN to collect data, the best possible information available to produce this kind of study, this kind of report. In that regards, the World Customs Organization, Interpol, RILO AP will be, some have been already received our request, others will receive requests soon to obtain data from the different operations that are going on in this field. Luigi has already mentioned some of these operations. The data from this operation will hopefully feed into the Unwaste report. With that, Johan, I think that the question was more related to UNODC, so I don't know if you want to add something. And Georgie, again, it was more a UNODC type of question, but if you want to jump in and explain also how Unwaste will be relevant to other activities conducted by UNEP, other work, that will also be useful. Joanna.
Thanks, Giovanni. I think the response was quite comprehensive. What I wanted to add that we're trying to coordinate with relevant actors who are like working on the issue, and also we are going to provide updates. So this is just the first that we're introducing the project, but throughout the life of the project, we are going to organize other ones where you're going to know a little bit more about our activities, the results, etc. Thanks a lot. I don't know, Georgie, you have anything to add?
Thanks. I think one of the points to raise is that the key focus of certain elements of Unwaste is coordination, and as Giovanni said, building partnerships. And so partnerships with all of the other stakeholders and actors who are working in this space is also critical. And of course, we will continue to reach out and work with all of those partners so that the findings of the Unwaste project can be best applied. As Giovanni said, this is going to focus significantly on research and data collection and the analysis of certain trends, as well as legal analysis and findings. And we hope that those findings and that research can support all of the other partners that are mentioned in this question to help them implement their more operational activities.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you, Joanna, thank you, Georgie. I see that there are a few more questions. One is specifically related to how will the Unwaste project address the diplomatic and legal aspects of waste dumping, which in many instances led to undue delays of returning waste to their countries of origin. So essentially is what is how will Unwaste address the issue also of the illegal dumping of the waste?
If I may respond to that, Giovanni, this is an excellent question. And indeed, one of the reasons why we are doing a deep dive legal analysis on gaps in existing legal frameworks is to address these indeed issues where you may have, due to various factors, including the delays caused in the repatriation process, then instances of waste dumping. So the legal analysis is going to build upon the trends analysis and the data that is collected to identify where there are still gaps in legislation and regulations, and then seek to provide recommendations to then address those gaps. So exactly the point raised here would be one of those gaps that would be addressed through a series of recommendations. That is the intention of the legal analysis in the 4 priority countries. It's also going to look quite a bit on penalties and those sorts of elements. So there will be different components of the legal analysis that is done. Thanks, Giovanni.
Thank you, Georgie. And Joanna, there is another question that you can probably take on whether the Unwaste project is going to address at some point also other ASEAN countries, such as, for instance, the Philippines. Maybe you can take that one.
Yes, for sure. So we have the 4 focus countries where we have the national advisory committees, but we will work in the wider Asian regions, and we'll try to involve stakeholders from other Asian countries, including Philippines, that was mentioned in the question. But our main focus would be on the 4 countries. It doesn't mean that we are going to exclude anyone else.
Thank you very much. And there is another question asking how essentially the research work under Unwaste is going to contribute to the efforts of UNODC to draft a report on crimes that affect the environment, a global report that will be conducted by the Research and Analysis branch of UNODC. Let's say that we are already working with that unit, the Research and Analysis branch. They're fully aware of the development of this work, of this research work, and the idea is that the 2 reports will essentially use the same data, the same information to the maximum possible extent. So there will be very much coordination in these efforts. Of course, the scope of the 2 reports is very different in the sense that the Unwaste report will focus only geographically on Europe to Asia, and in terms of commodity, only on waste, all type of waste, whereas the report on crimes that affect environment will have a global reach and will cover timber, wildlife, fish, waste, and much more. So they are, but they will use the same data set at some point in relation to the areas of overlap. Okay, I don't see further questions. No, there is one that I see now in the chat box. How would you address the rampant quarrying in the Philippines? Is this a form of environmental degradation and hence a special form of waste? Joanna, Georgie, anybody wants to take this question?
So in terms of quarrying, it's a form of a crime that affects the environment. So since it is an important environmental crime, the focus of the analysis that for this particular study is looking at the trade in illegal waste, and it's particularly going to do a deep dive into the 4 focus countries. And so we are going to look at all of the elements of the trade of the illegal trade of waste. It is an interesting point that you raise in terms of what is the definition of environmental crime. And this is something that is being discussed by a lot of different organizations, and any sort of trade in an environmentally sensitive commodity or a crime that affects the environment could be captured under that definition. In which case, your second question of, is this form of environmental degradation a special form of waste and therefore an environmental crime? Some would argue yes, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. But in agreeing in what Georgie said about the fact that quarrying is possibly a form of environmental crime, falling probably under the label of illegal mining, I would comfortably say that Unwaste will not focus on quarrying in the Philippines specifically. A, because it's not one of the pilot countries. B, because it's not really focused on waste. This is not to say that quarrying is not a relevant issue, it's just not within the scope of the Unwaste project. Okay, then Matthew, maybe you wanna, I see that there is a question there. Maybe you can turn your microphone on and jump in.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. Look, and I guess I asked this having worked on the Waste Force materials and participated in a couple of the meetings organised by the UNODC on the waste legislation guidance material to try and look at model provisions for ensuring that waste legislation in national countries are protected. And one of the issues were about protection of whistleblowers. I guess it's also that idea that those who often report on environmental crimes or those who investigate it, such as environmental NGOs who may bring it to the authorities' attentions, can also be subject to pressure, intimidation, and often arrest for actually identifying or going public with some of these crimes or requiring governments to investigate. And so I was wondering, as a question, is that something that is being examined or looked at within the gap analysis or the legislative analysis? Because I also know that, you know, one of the key lessons from the EU experience is very much that the community can be supporters of the authorities in observing and identifying you know, environmental crime and waste crime, and be able to sort of report to the authorities to stop it, and they're very important part of that engagement. So I was just wondering, is that going to be something that is being looked at or recommended as to how communities, journalists and whistleblowers can be protected and supported in blowing the lid on waste crime and other environmental crimes? Thanks.
Thank you, Matthew. And I think that this question falls squarely in the remit of Georgie. So I will ask Georgie to take this one.
Thank you, Giovanni. And Matthew, I think you raise a really important point, and it's very related to all of the work that we are doing on environmental defenders and ensuring that there are strong environmental legal frameworks in place to advance environmental rule of law and good environmental governance. And that includes key provisions on access rights or procedural rights, including access to information, public participation, and access to justice. And those key elements of environmental law apply to all components of environmental law, which would include environmental crime. And so those key provisions and those key legal principles will be included in any legal analysis. And I think you raise a very important point, and the terms of reference of the legal analysis is still under development, but this is certainly something that would be considered in the development of those terms of reference.
If I may jump in, Giovanni, just to complement Georgina's reply.
Yes,
From
yes,
our
please,
point
Luigi.
from our point of view, all the sources of the information are confidential. So for Olaf, all this information coming from journalists or whistleblower or whatever are treated as strictly confidential. So from our side, I could say we are already there, trying to protect the sources just to get as much information as possible, as much information detailed as possible. So it's really a good question. Thank you very much for the reply, Georgina.
Thank you all. There is also an additional question that probably is more of a comment from our participants, saying that clearly there is a sort of an underground economy working here, since waste dumping is integrated within a legitimate trade through concealment and misdeclaration. Sort of a trans-border illicit waste management service. So I think that it wasn't specifically a question. I don't know if any of the panelists want actually to comment on this issue.
Just to confirm that it is true, maybe there is an underground economy working on this, and we have a huge quantity of waste shipped from EU to the Asian countries. So if you have a look to the statistic, you can see how many millions of kilograms of waste, plastic, metal, paper, and whatever is shipped from here to them. So for sure, this is a real economy. So the idea is to try to find the good cooperation with the country of destination as from our side as origin countries in order to prevent this illegal economy. So I just can confirm that we have investigation because of this. So it's a good comment.
Yes, it is. It is a good comment. And as my previous boss used to call it, it's the dark side of globalization. That's a definition that I think I will remember, because this waste movement is really growing in the back of a global legitimate movement of waste, but that has developed as a dark side. Very well. I think that we have completed all of the questions that were asked in the Q&A box and in the chat box. I don't see further questions from my side. So I would probably, before passing the floor again to Matthew for a final wrap up, I would just like to express my gratitude to all of you for participating, for attending this event. I would like to thank the speakers, Luigi, Joanna, and Georgie, with the assistance of the UNODC team to make this webinar possible. Thanks to all of you for your insights. And thank you, Matthew. Thank you to the Asian Research Institute for Environmental Law for hosting us in this beautiful Waste Enforcement Asia community that we hope will remain alive for the foreseeable future, and where we will try to put also the information that comes out of this specific webinar presentation and everything. We will try, as well as possibly the recording, we will try to put it on this mobilized community. With that, thank you very much from my side, and over to you, Matthew.
And thank you very much, Giovanni and Joanna Florian, Georgina, and Luigi, for your presentations, and again to comment on the great project, the Unwaste project, implemented by UNODC with support from UNEP and funded by the European Union. And I think it's very important. This is an ongoing process. This continues and expands on the work that's previously been done by the Waste Force project. It shows a real commitment to tackling, as Giovanni says, that the unfortunate aspect of globalization, the scourge of waste, which we're all familiar with, the issues that go beyond just dealing with the transboundary waste, but also the dealing and the issues of waste, plastic waste and other waste within Southeast Asia. We know how important it is to deal with these issues in Southeast Asia, and it really is a priority for us. Enforcement and compliance is something that I think is exceptionally important. It's something that we work on in so many areas, whether it's wildlife crime or waste crime, or air pollution. These are things where enforcement and compliance are very, very important. It's a great honor and privilege, and thank you again for all your participation, and to our attendees for being with us on the first webinar. We will commence our monthly webinars and continue them on in 2022. Ariel is also developing an environmental law conference with our environmental law partners in the region, which will be on in April, so please stay tuned for more information. Again, on behalf of the Asian Research Institute for Environmental Law, it's been a great honor and privilege again to work with such exceptional people who are committed to environmental protection. Let's hope year 2022 we're able to really take the reins on environmental protection, environmental compliance, and have some great wins this year. So again, thank you very much, and all the information we'll be posting on relevant platforms, including the Mobilize platform for the Waste Force community, and we can access and provide those PowerPoint presentations and access to the video shortly. Thank you again very much, and good night to everyone, and from me, I'll see you next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.